Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Panel Presents Comic Talk. Today, we're going to check in and see what our guests are doing. We'll talk about our first comic book crushes and our top picks for our favorite alternate universe storylines. It's all coming up next on Comic Talk. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Comic Talk, where we get together with a panel of guests to talk about our favorite print medium. But before we start, be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you'll get notified whenever we go live, because we have comic book related shows every Tuesday to Friday at 4 p.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch at Previews World. So, with us as always is the Duchess of Free Comic Book Day, Ashton Greenwood.
Hey, howdy, hey, what's up, guys? I'm wearing my Jughead shirt because it's appropriate for what's about to happen here.
She is so excited, and I love it. And our special guest today from Archie Comics, please welcome artist and writer Dan Parent.
Hello, how are you?
Hey, welcome everyone. How's everyone doing?
Good.
Great.
Surviving? Ready for the weekend?
Yes.
Yeah. Drawing.
Anyone doing anything fun this weekend?
Meeting deadlines.
Pretty much.
There's nothing to do. Like, what can we do?
That is true. That is very, very true. So, Dan, let's talk a little bit about you to get started.
Okay.
You've been working in comics for over 30 years.
Right.
When did you know that you wanted to be an artist or a cartoonist?
You know, I knew pretty much from when I was about 5 years old. I was reading comics, around age 5. My mom would buy them for me as a bribery thing to sort of keep me busy. She would clean houses and she'd bring me with her. So she'd just give me a stack of comic books. And of course, back then you could buy they were like 20 cents a piece. So you could buy like 5 comic books for $1. And that's how I got started. That's how the whole thing started. It all started with, Archie and Harvey comics were my gateway into the whole comic book thing. And
which is kind of perfect. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, go
ahead. So you're a graduate of the Kubert School. We want to get into this a little bit. And they produced a numerous amount of people that work in the comic book industry today.
Right.
But so right after graduation, you immediately started working with Archie Comics, which is kind of perfect considering it was something that you grew up reading. So What was it like to get a job working for such a staple of the American comic landscape and also something you were already a fan of?
Well, it was pretty exciting because, first of all, when you're going to art school, you just want to get a job, period. You're just like, you just want to get into the field and make money and work, whatever, pay off your student loans. I was fortunate because I always was an Archie fan. A lot of my work in Archie at the Kubert School was sort of Archie based. Like I would do assignments with Archie's characters or in the Archie style. So it was kind of known in the school that I really liked the Archie stuff and I liked humor stuff. So when Victor Gorelick, the Archie editor at the time, was coming looking at portfolios, I had done a few pieces geared towards Archie and hoping that he would like them. And I was lucky because he did. So this is the third year of the school, final year, and he just started giving me some one-page gags and small assignments while I was still in school. And which really worked to my benefit because when I graduated, Archie needed a full-time artist on staff to work up in the office. So I was quickly hired by Archie. So it was really good timing. And I remember at the time being pretty excited to work for an actual big comic book company.
That's super exciting.
Yeah, it was
kind
great.
of sounds like it was meant to be.
Right?
I guess it was. I mean, in my head, I was like everyone else. Like when I grew up, I liked, superhero comics and I drew those too. And I wanted to get into the superhero stuff too. But I kept going back to Archie all the time. Like whenever we'd have an assignment, I'd always kind of go back to Archie. And it just sort of I always went back to Archie. Even like when I was growing up, around 7 or 8 years old, when I started reading superhero comics, I'd do those for a couple of years, and then a few years later, I'd check back and get back into the Archie stuff. So I think it was always calling me. So here I am.
That's perfect. It's perfect. Now, in 1994, you were a co-writer for the Archie Love Showdown storyline, which was going to put an end to the age-old question of who Archie was going to pick, Betty or Veronica. And this is the arc that would reintroduce Cheryl Blossom in the main continuity after about a decade's worth of time. So tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, well, the Archie Love Showdown storyline came about when me and my friend Bill Gollier, who also worked for Archie, we worked on a lot of projects together, and they just wanted to do sort of like a big story that might get some attention. Because at that time, this is the early 90s, you were starting to see Marvel and DC come up with storylines that were getting a lot of attention, like Death of Superman, that kind of stuff. But so we were just asked to do sort of a storyline that sort of worked within the Archie realm. So the love triangles was always the most powerful storyline. So we wanted to do something that would mess that up a little bit. And then we liked Cheryl Blossom a lot. And Cheryl Blossom had been popular in the 80s, early 80s, but then she was kind of removed from the Archie books because she was a little bit too racy. There was, they thought there was a few complaints from some fans. But we always in our mind always like loved Cheryl and wanted to bring her back. So the crux of the story was Archie was had the hots or was getting involved with this new girl that wasn't Betty and Veronica. He was getting love letters from her, and we had to make the reader guess who it was. So the 4-issue miniseries dealt with that, and at the end of the miniseries, we revealed that it was Cheryl Blossom, which brought Cheryl back into the Archie universe, and actually, has kept her there since.
Mm-hmm. Cheryl's actually one of my Cheryl's one of my personal favorites. Like, her sass is unmatched. Yeah,
she's great. and on the show Riverdale, she's great too. They've matched her perfectly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so, in addition to bringing back Cheryl Blossom, you also introduced the first openly gay character in Archie Comics with Kevin Keller, introduced in Veronica 202 back in 2010.
Right.
And he's even since become a regular on the Riverdale show.
Yes.
So what has the fan response been to Kevin, and how does it feel to know that character has kind of taken on the second life in the show?
Well, the fan response was good to Kevin. The Archie readership was fine. There was, of course, a few conservative groups out there that weren't happy about it, but they weren't really reading the Archie books anyway. Mm-hmm. But there was a bit of a backlash when 1 Million Moms, this group, kind of came on board and tried to get Archie Comics boycotted for it, but it just sold more books. So it really worked in our benefit. That's an issue with George Takei was a guest star in one of our Kevin books. But yeah, it was great. And then to see Kevin on Riverdale, the characters become really popular on Riverdale. So it's been great. The fans, the fans are the ones that decide what characters stay and what characters go. We introduced different characters, and if the fans didn't like Kevin, he wouldn't be around. But the fans took to Kevin right away. So it's been a real good situation.
Oh, I love that.
Right.
And honestly, 1 Million Moms, there's not even a million of them. I think
there's about 300, maybe 400 across the country. And
oh, man.
They always try and cause some kind of trouble.
Yeah.
And whenever they do a boycott, it just makes things, it just works in the reverse.
Right.
So, So they really, they protested the issue where Kevin got married. This was a future issue, obviously, because Kevin was a grown-up in the Life with Archie book, which is a book we put out a few years ago where the characters are grown up. So in the future, of course, Kevin gets married, and the book had come out, and it was selling okay. But then 1 Million Moms got a hold of it, and they were asking for a boycott, and then the book sold out.
Yay!
Yay!
Completely accomplished this.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah, there you go. Winning. Now, over the years, you worked on a lot of different Archie titles. What has been your favorite moment working for Archie Comics?
Ooh.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. And I was trying to figure that out. There's, it's hard when I've been there 33 years, so there have been a lot of them. I can only tie it down to a couple things. I know, when I did Archie Meets Kiss, which is one of the crazy crossovers we did, we had a book signing in LA at a comic shop, and we did it with the members of Kiss. And that was one of my favorites, only because it was so surreal. I'm actually at a book signing with Kiss. That's not something I would have predicted. And I would say that's one of them. And probably the Love Showdown thing stands out too, only because that was the first time well, we did something. It got so much press and so much publicity.
Mm-hmm.
And this is pre-internet. This is still the early '90s, and the storyline, the idea of Betty and Veronica not being part of Archie's life, just took America by like storm. And we were on like Weekly, and then we were like in like Time magazine, and Good Morning America, Today Show. Like it was like a major news story. And I think at that time you kind of realized how Archie was such a part of Americana, and that was like exciting because it was a storyline that we came up with, and we had no idea that it was gonna touch people like that. So that is, since it was the first big explosion of media, that kind of stands out to me too.
That kiss thing is insane. Like I totally would have lost it.
Yeah, it was nuts. It was crazy. It was crazy.
And so kind of in a similar vein, Archie's been around for so long, 80 years coming up on it. So what do you think has been the appeal of Archie that's kept him relevant all this time?
Archie, it's just the relatability of the characters. Archie's a part of Americana. Everybody knows Archie, Betty, and Veronica, Jughead. And the characters are just part of they're like our neighbors and our friends. The Archie characters have been around as long as Superman and Batman, and characters that have, that are part of the landscape. And that's why the characters have lasted so long, because of how people relate to them. And it's also why the characters work in so many different genres, like with Riverdale, with the horror titles we do. I mean, you can take the Archie characters and put them in any situation, and it works. You could do vampires, zombies, werewolves. You can, they can be spawns of Satan. and we can have then we can go all the way to little Archie. We can do Archie 3000. I mean, there's just so many genres of Archie, and it just works every time. And it's for one reason: it's because of the characters. Because people care about the characters. It's that simple.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, aside from your work in the Archieverse, you've also done work for Marvel, Disney, Golden Books, just to name a couple. And you've illustrated Felix the Cat, Barbie, and your own creation, Die Kitty Die, along with Fernando Ruiz. Tell us a little bit about her and where you came up with the idea for that title, because that's really fun.
Well, Die Kitty Die is something we just kind of came up with on our own. We wanted to just do something that was different than the usual stuff, but something that was our own creation. And so the character of Kitty is she's in the storyline. She's also a comic book character, and her publishers don't know what to do with her because her sales have dropped. So they decide to kill her off. But in the storyline, Kitty is like a real character in the real world in that realm. So they have to sort of figure out a way to kill her. So they sort of hire the other comic book characters in that universe to kill her off. But it's hard. But it's a challenge because Kitty is a witch with a lot of power, so killing her off is not that easy. And then, as you can see from the covers you're showing, we just do a lot of parodies of pop culture stuff, and we incorporate it in the story. We had one where Kitty was stuck in a TV set, so she was just. Here's I Love Lucy for one. Kitty just gets trapped in all these different TV shows. And
I love that Scooby cover.
Yeah, that was fun. And so we just we created the series on Kickstarter. So we did it, we did it without a publisher because we wanted to just, do it on our own, see how it would go. And we were very successful. We've had 4 different Kickstarters now. We've done 4 different series, and we just had to do the Kickstarter recently, which was our best one yet. So there's definitely a nice fan base for Kitty. And so we're gonna keep going as long as the people want it.
Might as well, right?
Yeah, it's so much fun.
And so Die Kitty Die was actually a part of Free Comic Book Day last year.
Right.
So as we all know, that draws a huge crowd for comic shops. So in your opinion, why do you think rather people should be going to their local comic shops?
Well, I mean, what better place to introduce kids to reading? I mean, that's how I started to read. That's how I started to read and write, was from comic books. And there's no better place to, I think, to get kids involved is with comics. There's such a wide variety and so many genres of comics now. It's an easy place to go, and of course, then people like myself who are older still love to go to comic shops because I like to see what's going on out there and to see what people are doing. And Free Comic Book Day is the best. It's the best. It's just as it's like Christmas in comic shops and for people in the comic book industry, because it's just seeing so many different free books and so many different new projects that are out there. And so getting Die Kitty Die involved in that was great because we brought in so many new readers that hadn't seen the book. We had so many new fans just from that book because, as you know, with Free Comic Book Day, you print hundreds of thousands of comics to give away. And, you bring in a lot of people that have never seen it. So that really worked out well. And it's great across the board for all different companies because, again, we want to keep people reading comics, and comic shops are just a special place. They're just a great place. I didn't have them when I grew up. When I grew up, it was like newsstands, finding comics on newsstands, going to the newsstand, hoping they had the latest issues of something. A lot of time they didn't because newsstands weren't as regular as comic shops. So kids nowadays don't know that. They just, they don't even really know what a newsstand is. But comic shops are a very great place, and we want to really support them and keep them going.
Yeah, we do. We really do. So if you want to check out some of Dan's work, be sure to stop by your local comic shop and ask for one of his many Archie titles. And while you're there, don't forget to check out Die Kitty Die, and you might just find a new favorite comic to read. And speaking of reading, let's check in on what our guests are reading or drawing or writing or watching or creating. It's time for What Are You Doing? All right, so we want to ask each of our guests, what are you doing? And we want to know what you're doing to pass the time over the last few weeks. So to those of you watching, let us know in the comments what you are doing by using hashtag what are you doing. So let's go ahead and start with Ashton.
Sorry, I'm messing with the volume currently. What am I doing? Okay. So one, I've been playing a lot of tennis, which I said last week, but I'm officially my dad and I have been playing against each other, and I beat him the last 2 times we played. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. I've also been watching Love, Victor on Hulu, which if you don't know what this is, highly recommended. It's a spin-off series from the Love, Simon movie that came out 2 years ago, which was an adaptation from a book called Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda. And basically Love, Victor is an LGBTQ plus romance coming of age story. Victor is a Latino kid coming to terms with his sexuality in a family that is less progressive, less open to those things. And he kind of is guided through it by Simon. But it's really interesting and fascinating because it kind of works as the juxtaposition to Love, Simon. It pushes back against a lot of those things and explores that, not everybody has the same kind of privilege that Simon experienced as a white male with a very liberal family. So I think it's more important than ever now to be watching and consuming that kind of content. So I've been super into that. Nice.
I applaud you for actually going out and getting some exercise and playing tennis. That's good. I'm definitely gonna have to check out that show too. All right. What about you, Dan? What have you been up to?
Since the pandemic, there's no gym. So I have really learned about how to hike. I've been hiking every trail we have out here, and we have many. So to keep my mental state sane, I've been hitting a lot of hiking trails, which has been great because the weather's been nice. And then, as far as in the house, I'm doing a lot of work still. I still have a lot of deadlines. Doing a lot of commissions too, because even though I'm not doing conventions, I get a lot of commissions. I'm working on those. But of course, I binge watch TV, while I'm working. So one of the things I was watching was on Hulu. I was watching the show called Mrs. America, which was about politics in the 1970s, and it was about kind of how the Equal Rights Amendment and kind of like how feminism was rising in the 70s. I like political shows, so I really like that. I also like watching Dead to Me on Netflix, which is good. And then I watch a lot of old shows. Like I'm working and I just like put on, like on Hulu or Netflix, so just like these streaming shows. So I really like the Munsters. I watch a lot of the Munsters, and I Love Lucy, and I like Lost in Space. I've been on a Lost in Space jag lately, so it's just sort of like whatever. Something will like hit me, and I'll like it, and then I'll just stream it or get it on DVD and watch it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I watch a lot of TV. A lot of TV while I'm working.
It's good to have it on in the background, though, to kind of
even though it's something like if I'm watching I Love Lucy, I've seen those a million times, but it's nice to have it in the background because I know what's going on, and if I need to like stop and watch it, I can.
Right.
Yeah. Where some of the new shows you're streaming, you kind of have to stop and watch them because you want to see what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But yeah, so and then I haven't watched that many movies lately, but I just watched Midsummer again. I watched. I don't know if you've seen that. It came out last summer, but it's a really
is that
weird horror movie. But I wasn't sure how I felt when I first saw it. There's a lot to digest, but now I've seen it like 5 times, so I guess I like it because I keep watching it and trying to like find new things about it. And Florence Pugh plays she's the actress who's the main character, and she's a really good actress. She's in Little Women too. So I really like her. I think she's really good in it. So yeah, so I just it's a very interesting movie. If you've seen Hereditary, it's the first movie that was made by this guy.
Yeah.
Which is creepy as hell.
Yeah.
This is different. It's not quite as terrifying, but it's like a more weird, slow terror. It takes place in daytime and daylight, so it's just creepy and weird. So I recommend it.
Okay. I'm sold. I saw Hereditary and was like, I don't know what this is, but it's brilliant. So now I feel like I have to see Midsummer. Yeah,
Midsummer is it's worth the watch because it's unlike something. Even if you don't like it, it's different than from something that you've seen before.
Nice.
Okay, sold.
All right, I'll just try that. I like how you guys are watching like educational things, motivational things. I'm watching The Floor is Lava.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. Yeah, I want to see that. I'm going to watch that. Yeah.
I'm just like, I want to make my house into a giant lava pit now. All right, let's see what the audience is doing. Are they also... See, Joseph is saying he loves tennis, Ashton.
I am so happy to hear that.
And he's also working on a couple of websites for his football league and my friend's podcast. I'm reading writing books. I'm watching Star Trek Voyager on Netflix, work and school a lot. Not a lot. That is a lot, though. That's a lot. Yeah. And Aaron, reading comics. Very good. Mm-hmm. Brian saying, working on some things. I still have to edit the photos from my last cosplay photo shoot so I can post them next month. Nice.
Ooh.
Carl getting ready for Canada Day. Ooh, I didn't know Canada Day was coming up.
When is that?
July 1st.
I don't know.
I feel like I just showed my ignorance with that. I have no clue when that is.
I know it's around our July 4th.
Oh, okay.
I think.
Well, nice.
I need to find this out.
Well, while Ashton finds that out, let's move on to our next segment first.
You always remember your first.
So anyone who knows comics knows that fans really love their first issues and first appearances. So first, we want to talk about some of the momentous comic book firsts that have happened in our lives. Considering that a lot of the Archie comics deal with relationships and crushes, for this episode, we want to ask, who was your first comic book crush? And for those of you watching, let us know in the comments who your first was by using #first. So Dan, let's start with you.
Well, I had to think about this, and then I remembered, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of embarrassing, but it was in the Richie Rich comics, it was Richie Rich's mom. And she was very buxom, is the best way to put it. I guess like 5 years old, and I just remember the way they drew her was very, I mean, she was a mom, but she was very curvy. So I guess people will have to just look her up, because if you look up Richie Rich's mom, you'll see what I'm talking about.
Oh, here we go.
There she is.
Here we go.
See, she was very
the hourglass.
Very much so. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
She always
wore very like kind of like Marilyn Monroe dresses for a mom. She was always wearing kind of like some sexy dresses for a mom.
She was a sexy mom back in the day, right?
Yeah.
Right. Love that for her.
What about you, Ashton?
Okay, first things first, Canada Day is on July 1st. You can't see it because of the glare, but I have found out it is on July 1st.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, I don't think this person was like actually my first crush. I don't know that I could nail this down, but it feels inappropriate for me to say anything other than Jughead here, considering how much I am obsessed with him.
Yeah.
I love this man, and I can't even figure out why, because he's so like kind of apathetic about like literally everything, but he's kind of like also relatable. And I think part of the appeal of Jughead for me is the fact that he is so loyal, probably almost to a fault, to Archie, and I think that's really admirable. But also, like, he's got that like dorky quality that is also kind of compelling, and I think that was like the first thing that I was like, hey, he's kind of a nerd and he just wants to like, you know, eat burgers and be left alone. So that was the first thing. And then once I like found out more about him, I was like, oh, you know, like he's a great friend, you know, he's always got his friends back, etc. And it grew into something more, but mostly he's just dorky and full of sassy comments, and I love that.
That's a good choice.
Ashton, is that your type?
I think so. Yeah. I'm gonna have to say yes.
All right. I usually don't chime in, but I have to give my little shout out to. So, ElfQuest was one of my first comics that I ever read. It was like the first series, and I was in love with. And it wasn't even Cutter. I was in love with Skywise, and he was like the kind of like suave, you know, always had like a different elf girl all the time. And I don't know why, as a kid, I just thought he was so charming and suave. And like now, I'm like, oh, he's kind of a player.
Oh,
yeah, look at that.
He's cute though.
Yeah, see? He was cute.
I can get behind that.
I named my first cat after him, so I mean.
I respect that.
All right, now that we've all embarrassed ourselves, how about some comments from the audience? See, Brian says he always thought Jubilee from X-Men was cute. Yes.
Okay. Solid.
Let's see, Anton, Batgirl, and Sally. Joseph, Rogue, hands down. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not surprised to see that one show up.
Rogue, and Gambit were my like first couple, so I totally support that. All right.
Oh,
now,
okay.
Now let's move on to our last segment, top picks. All right, for this round of top picks, we want to ask, what are your top alternate universe stories in comics? Considering that our guest has worked on titles like Archie versus Sharknado, Archie meets Kiss, Archie meets Glee, and Archie meets Batman 66, we felt that the alternate universe topic was a pretty good one. And you can let us know in the comments what your top picks are by using #toppicks. So let's start with Ashton. What is your top pick?
Okay. I feel bad because it's not one of Dan's titles, but I loved Blossom 666. It's so perfect. It makes so much sense for Cheryl and Jason to be Satanists, and they're competing in this storyline for the title of Antichrist. And part of the reason why I love it is kind of honestly my first exposure to Jason was really in Riverdale, but like he's already dead when you meet him. So I was interested to find out more about his character in the comics. And so then kind of from a comic standpoint, my first exposure to him was in Mark Waid's run on Archie. And he's so conniving in that set of stories when they're working against, you know, Veronica and Betty, and they're trying to turn everybody against each other when they show up to Riverdale, that it makes perfect sense for them to be doing this. And there's also something about their complete remorse and complete lack of remorse, I should say, rather, in their journey to become the Antichrist that is very believable. Mm-hmm. And it makes perfect sense for them. And they seem to, they want to target the kind of the weakest links, right? In this story, Cheryl goes after Dilton and Jason goes after Ethel. So there's all of these different things that are so appalling and vile that makes sense for them to be doing, and for them to be doing it and not feeling bad about it at all. And you almost like enjoy it in like a sick way because they pull it off so well.
Nice.
That's cool.
What about you, Dan?
Well, as far as alternate universes go, I think I go back to like DC Comics back like in the 70s when I was reading them as a kid. And I always liked it when they did Earth 1 because it was like the alternate version to like the Justice League. But you had like, Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman were like their older versions of themselves. And then like you had the Huntress was introduced, and she was sort of like the Earth 1, Earth 2, I should say. She was Earth 2. Earth 2 Batgirl, and she was like the daughter of Catwoman and Batman. So there was like, I just like the fact that it was like this other universe that was similar to our Earth and our superheroes, but there was like a twist on it. And then I think, since then there's been a million different Earths in the DC universe, but that always like caught my eye. And it was also a clever way for DC Comics to incorporate like their old superheroes from the 40s, because at that point they were in the business for about 40 years at the time, and they didn't know what to do with these superheroes, so they just created this other Earth for them. So I always thought that was cool. Nerd alert.
You're in the right show for that.
Yeah, exactly. All right, I got to chime in here with one because it's honestly one of my favorites, and it is from the Archie universe. But Archie versus Predator. I just love the whole idea. Like the first time I think someone sent that to me, and I was like, "There's really Archie versus Predator? Like, how is it? This is going to be like one comic. like this is not going to end well." But it was actually a lot of fun. I really liked it. That's one of my favorites, honestly.
Yeah, that was fun. It was fun. It was weird just seeing like the cartoon versions of Archie getting their heads torn off and stuff. Like you don't see that every day.
Ashton, you have to read that one.
I had gotten it. It was like a San Diego exclusive, I want to say last year, that I came into possession of somehow. I guess somebody knew that I liked Archie because it was someone from Diamond handed it to me. So I'm very excited. I need to acquire the rest of them though. Is it 5 issues? It's a miniseries.
That
right?
was 5 issues, I believe. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, awesome.
I'll add it to my list with excitement.
Here we go. All right, let's see what other ones we have in the comments. Amalgam? Am I saying that right? Amalgam Comics? Amalgam. I like how Johnny just pipes in just to correct me.
Relax, bud.
Anton says Batman and Ninja Turtles Speeding Bullet. Brian, Kingdom Come.
Ooh.
Joseph, may sound silly, but Justice League versus Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, just because I was a huge MMPR fan. That's an interesting one. I like all these.
Okay.
There's that's fun and creative. I like how creative we can be. All right. Well, we're coming to the close of our show, but before we end, let's go around and do some plugs. So let's start with Dan. Is there anything that you want to promote, and then where can people find you online?
Well, I'm currently still working on new stories for the Archie books this fall. Some Christmas stuff I'm working on. And I'm also working on Die Kitty Die too, which will be out in the fall too. But yeah, if you want to just find me on social media, I am on Twitter. It's @ParentDaniel. Instagram is also @ParentDaniel. And you can find me on Facebook. And then my website is danparent.com. So I'm pretty easy to find.
There we go. And what about you, Ashton?
Free Comic Book Day is officially back in action July 15th through September 9th at your local comic shop. You can head there every week. There will be 5 to 6 different titles for you to pick up completely free, so you can celebrate a free comic book summer all summer long. Also, don't forget to back the comeback of your favorite local comic or game store as they're beginning to reopen. So if you can go there and support them, purchase something, follow the various safety regulations, do that. If not, check out curbside pickup, mail order and delivery options, and also give them a shout out on Facebook. We're still doing the Back the Comeback social media challenge, or Twitter, Instagram, whatever your particular thing is, and show them some love.
And there we go. I think I got a little note that we had one more alternate universe storyline: Archie versus the Punisher.
Yeah, that was a big one. That kind of got the ball rolling with Archie and the team ups. But that was really popular when that came out. That was back in 94, I think. That came out.
How many mashups are there?
Do you know what I just remembered exists? That's incredible. Archie and the B-52s.
I just did that. That was my last one 6 months ago.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, that was an interesting story. That was I was on Facebook, and I was I'm friends with Fred Schneider from the B-52s on Facebook. And I just said to him, would you be interested in us like doing like a crossover with Archie? And he's like, yeah, sure. So he just mentioned it to his manager. And then before you knew it, Archie was going back and forth with the management of B-52s. And then about a few weeks later, we were coming up with the storyline. And then before I knew it, we were soliciting it for Diamond. It was like, it happened so fast. But it was just one of those things where, usually we just got a conversation rolling, and then it came about. And that was probably one of the most fun things I've done, because I'm a huge B-52s fan. So it was really cool doing the project and actually getting to meet them too.
That's awesome.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
I've had Love Shack stuck in my head for the last week. Like, my brother's literally been like, "Can you knock it off?"
I'm gonna have to look up a full chart of all the Archie mixed mashups.
Well, for the last 10 years, they've been on a roll, because I've worked on most of them. I've worked on Archie Meets Kiss, kind of got the ball rolling again for me. And then, like I said, it was Archie Meets Glee, Sharknado, B-52s, of course. Yeah, Batman 66 was a big one. And yeah, so, then Predator, I didn't draw Predator. I did a cover for that. I think there's a couple. Oh, then there's another couple in the works. I did start one. It was kind of put on the back burner because of the pandemic, but I've started it. It was Archie Meets Flash Gordon. So that one we've begun it. It's begun. We're just waiting for it to get it back on the schedule.
Ooh.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
Nice. Well, that's wait.
Yo, I am beyond excited.
Oh, that's cool.
And I'm drawing it so the Archie characters are back in the 50s with and Flash Gordon's modern.
I like it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is insane.
Super exciting.
You got that art really fast. That's amazing.
That's really cool. I think this is the first time we've gotten a little spoilers into something that's coming up. That's exciting.
Right?
All right. Well, I think that about does it for Comic Talk. So I want to thank all of our guests for joining us. Just let you guys know that we do this every Friday at 4 p.m. So be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you get notified whenever we go live. Also, tune in on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4 p.m. for Previews Game Night, where we get together and play some games where you can join the audience and play along. And every Wednesday is Previews World Weekly, also at 4 p.m. And you can find all of these shows by checking out Previews World on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. So until next time, remember, not all heroes wear capes, but right now there are a lot who have to wear masks. See ya!